Turkey is a NATO member with a huge army, a country that is an inheritance of the Ottoman Empire. Is there risk there? Maybe.
But Erdogan's critics say that he has misused last year's failed coup attempt to boost Islamic nationalism. What does that mean in practice? I'm about to meet a young AK party member in this mosque. It's new and financed by the government. Mohammed says that it represents what Erdogan calls the new Turkey.
This new Turkey is self-confident. For a while, we got used to losing, but now we know that we can win again. We can be strong and be a great nation because that's what we were in the past.
Erdogan supporters crushed the coup attempt and they see their victory as an opportunity to create a new nation. They're basing their newfound power on Islam.
Turkey's fate is tied to politics and religion. It was like that in the past, and it's like that now. The separation of religion and state does not exist. That's a secularist concept.
Sup, everybody? So today's world seems to be pretty alarming. And of course, when something is crazy and going crazy, the right thing to do is to add fuel to the fire. And I hope that what I'm gonna say is gonna be proved wrong, but this is still something I think we should all pay attention to, especially you Europeans, because this time the Islamic threat is going to be much closer home, and not only from the inside, from the outside too. And I'm talking about Turkey, and there are three things I'm going to touch on. One is why I think Iran is going down. Two, why I think Israel should still strike Iran, even if there is a chance that Iran and the IRGC and the Islamic regime might go down even without Israel doing anything. And the third thing I want to talk about is why I think Turkey might be the next country, next Islamic country that is planning a global caliphate. So yesterday I made a live, two lives actually, and I think it was in the second live that I casually mentioned that we should really watch out for Turkey. I think what the Israel is like asking itself right now is does it want to bring the Iranian Ayatollah regime down or not? It's a question. Because after if Iran is will be brought down, hopefully like become democratic and stuff, there is a good chance that the next big regional player is Turkey. And Turkey has a serious army, has serious forces, and a crazy leader. Completely insane, crazy leader. And Turkey, used to have a caliphate. If the Islamic sentiment in Turkey would continue getting stronger, Turkey can be the next thing. And I heard like there are analysts in Saudi Arabia that announce it, right? They say it outright that after Iran, they believe that Turkey would be next. Of course, there are also forces inside of Turkey that oppose this Islamism, but this is something that we really should watch out for. That Saudi Arabia, analysts in Saudi Arabia do believe this is an option. And the thing with Turkey is that Iran and Russia kind of cooperate right now, but Turkey has friction with both, like friction points with Russia, and then it has right now friction points with Iran, but they have their own like expansionist dreaming, like they go into Iraq and Syria as well, and they cooperate more with the Sunni forces, right, and fight Iran there. But here also, like the Kurds don't like Turkey, so it's not that easy. But they might want to pick up the dream of having a caliphate, and that would be a real fun experience for Europe for sure as well. With Iran, it's harder because, like I said, ISIS came up, and then the Shia militants are responding to ISIS. So the Sunni-Shia war is on full scale in these countries, right? On those countries, they really do enjoy that. But the hope is, of course, that Turkey will not go that way. That's what that they would be like they would work on their economy and let go of those crazy Islamic ideas that brought their economy from the fastest growing economy in to the awful joke that they are now. And maybe there will it's unclear, because like right now Turkey also like with it can't afford putting an embargo on Israel, but the Erdogan did declare that he wants to do that. So Erdogan is signaling to Hamas and like the Muslim Brotherhood kind of forces that is in Egypt, and also like Saudi Arabia fights them. Maybe it is a little bit signaling that there would be a next caliphate to fight on. So of course, after I said it yesterday and started thinking about it more, the more I noticed some clues that might lead to that conclusion. All right, so first, before we have a new Islamic caliphate power, we have to see what is happening to the old one. And I feel that whatever the Islamic regime is now doing is so out of line, is so different. It smells like the end of an era. And I don't think they necessarily fear the West, because the West are like wimps. This is why they could have launched this grandiose attack, fully believing that both the Brits and the French and the Americans would try to stop Israel from responding. I believe that even though it might also be because those countries believe that if Iran falls, then there would be no Shia force to balance Turkey. Those countries are not stupid after all. Okay, to be completely honest, I do think they're stupid, but I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and explore that little chance that they actually know what they're doing, even though I doubt it. And there is another thing that I said during that live, is that a lot of time governments would distract us to one direction, so we won't notice what's happening for where we should really be paying attention. It's not that we shouldn't be paying attention to those places where they tell us to pay attention to. But if there is so much focus on one area, the question maybe should also be, what are the areas that we should be focusing on, and they're trying to make us forget about. Or they choose denial until the very last moment when it's about to explode in their faces, or it had already exploded. Part 1. Why I think the Iranian regime especially thinks that it has to do grandiose gestures to save itself. So here is an article I want you guys to pay attention to, and I'm going to point out a few things I want to show. So Iran claims that October 7th attack was revenge for Soleimani's assassination. Hamas denies the statement made by Iran's Revolutionary Guard, said that the October 7th attack is a response to Israel's crimes at Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. It says in the article, the claim contradicts Tehran's previously expressed rhetoric of distancing from the Hamas attack on October 7th. There is a change in rhetoric. So before that, this article is from December 27th. They denied their relationship to the Hamas attack. And then they tried to say that they were at least aware of it, and it is part of a front that they have with Hamas. And Hamas denied it. Hamas denied the cause. So we see Hamas is distancing themselves from Iran. So the question here should also be, did they find a new pattern? Why are they distancing themselves from those who basically feed them? Who are their new overlords? Iran went from denying their involvement in that attack to saying that they had something to do with it. And now they outright say, hey, this is our general that planned it. I don't think it was a slip of a tongue. I think they did it on purpose. They want to show the Islamic world that this is them. This is Iran. This is the Islamic regime of Iran that did that. Second, again, who is showing off what they are doing? Those who feel threatened, or those who just, this is my will, this is what I did in my life. I want everybody to know. This is my legacy. different, very different psychology. Of course, second thing they did is that famous, huge missile attack towards Israel from Iranian soil. Third, hijab. They are now enforcing the hijab after this missile attack that they did. My guess is there is a good chance this video is not going to get monetized, so please support me. I have a Buy Me Coffee link in the description. It really, really helps. Actually, even if it is monetized, I really, really do need your support, and that support really, really helps me keep generating and creating content for you all. So that is a little plugin for myself that I inserted here. All right, back to the video. So, third, hijab. They are now enforcing the hijab on women like crazy. Of course, there are the obvious forces that the Iranian regime would want to fight super hard against, right? The Islamic regime. All those people who spray graffiti that they wish the Israelis to strike Iranian targets. All those people who post something against the Iranian regime on social media. Those are the obvious targets. But why are they suddenly enforcing even more strongly the hijab after those horrible, terrible, like country spread like everywhere in Iran? There were those protests to go against hijab, and because of it, it seemed like they loosened up the way they are forcing hijab on women, and suddenly they go back to full scale. So obviously the West is cooperating yet fearing Iran at the same time. And they are showing how Islamic they are. They are attacking Israel directly from Iranian soil. They are enforcing hijab more strongly. By the way, there is another reason, and a more cynical reason, I think. They are doing it specifically, like, you know, the smaller people who actually run the jails and everything like that. They might feel that if this is really the end of their regime, it's going to be off with their heads sooner or later anyway, if the Western side in Iran actually wins. And what they do to women in Iranian jail is not just imprisoning them, they're raping them. Those women who get caught doing anything against the Islamic code of conduct, they get raped.
This is what it sounds like when women get kidnapped in the streets of Iran.
So what are they doing? They're doing things that are very untypical to how the Iranians have managed themselves behind the scenes, using mostly proxies, never really coming to the forefront, trying to hide their involvement with everything that's going on in the Middle East by just keeping the distance as much as they can and not taking responsibility, and especially not confessing anything that would alarm the average citizen of Western countries, right? The media wouldn't report it. Not really. They wouldn't really stress how much Iran is bad, everything, even though the experts would come out and say, hey, this is all Iran. Iran is probably the one behind Gaza. Iran is probably the one behind, because they are all financing all those countries to Qatar. Netanyahu, Bibi, he made it his life mission to make sure everybody knows what kind of threat Iran is. So he would go upstage in the UN, and he would have this amazing drawing of the bomb, and then like the uranium steps and when it's going to be too late and things like that. He had those displays of how we stole like tons and tons of documents from Iran that proves their plan to use the nuclear weapons to attack this and that and go against Israel and go against Saudi and go against the West. And I mean, they chant death to America and death to Israel every day in the morning with their, like the kids do. But still, if I look at like American tweeting, and you have all those American nationalists that stand with Iran, like what's his name? Something Hinkle. maybe the media doesn't like show it enough, but that is after like we have a prime minister of a famous country that is really warned the world that this is what's going on. But the Iranians try to stay behind the scene as much as it can. And here is what happened. Israel on April 1st struck the building next to the Iranian embassy and killed a very big general in the Iranian forces that also planned the 7th of October attack. So here's the crazy part. The Iranians said out loud, admitted to the public and said, hey, this general, he planned it. It's not only that the Iranians allowed it to happen, that the Hamas came, hey, we're going to do that. And the Iranians were like, oh, we're not going to interfere. No, the Iranians planned it. They planned Hamas to go inside of Israel and rape and murder and massacre civilians. And they admit it now. They didn't do it for 6 months. Where were they? Why didn't they take the glory and expressed their achievement out loud before? The Iranians that are so smart and so, what did they try to show? Who were they proving a point to? There are rumors that they warned the Americans and Israelis in all sorts of ways, like through Arab countries, and the Arab countries went ahead and warned the relevant parties, and they knew they would. They knew that the Saudis are basically sitting in the same war room with Americans and Israelis for years now, by the way. So they knew that the message would be sent. So that's weird. That's one thing that's weird, but I'm completely positively sure that they wanted to strike Israel for real. And they really hope that some of the missiles would go through. You don't send that many missiles for nothing. But they did a double game because they wanted, probably the Americans behind the scenes were like ready to sacrifice Israel, because the Americans, everybody that they are playing with, they're pawns. We're all pawns. And if the Americans think that by Iran doing that, then they wouldn't lose the Shia force that might be holding something else that they don't want to tell the public about, then they would be like, yeah, go ahead, let's do that display. An option. Do I think it's the right move? No. They trusted the West, that the West would be ready to screw Israel, because the West would lie about Israel. Can you imagine a government like France and UK, and the BBC belongs to the UK, right? And the BBC feeds the UK population for months now that Israel is committing a genocide. Now, this media outlet that is financed by the government, by the British government, spews that false information. And then the Brits, the same government that feeds that media, also goes and cooperates with Israel on that scale. What's this double game? Now I saw the British news. People are confused. Like, on one hand, wait, is Israel like the evil, awful country that is portrayed to the population? And also there are those crazy demonstrations that are paid by Iran and other forces. The easy explanation would be, okay, they're trying to get votes and get reelected by using those voices, which is a dead end for every smart politician. And at the same time, they go and cooperate like that with that evil Israeli government. One thing is, of course, that they also see the Iranian regime as a threat. And the other thing is that they don't want their own population to know what's really going on, obviously. And it's more complex than just Iran, probably. Now imagine if the Iranian regime seems crazy and they are afraid, it seems like they are afraid of some Islamic forces from the inside, maybe from the outside, but probably from the inside as well. Oh, I have this beautiful story I want to tell. Okay, so a little bit of a story time. I'm going to say it real fast, hopefully, because I don't speak English that fast. So this is an Arab story. You have the desert people and the city people. The city people are fat and they like partying and everything is good and they have luxury life. And the desert people are tough and strong. And it's Arabs we're talking about. So of course the desert people live out of looting. What happens is that the desert people, originally, okay, the reason I'm confusing is because the word Arab originally described desert people. Now it's just everybody who speaks Arabic. So the desert people are watching the city people, seeing when they become weak, and once they become weak, they take over the city. Generations pass, they get used to the luxury life of the city, and those people that they didn't manage to completely annihilate when they captured the city also ran off to the desert, and now they're the ones that watching the city people having fun and celebrating. So it's the same thing with the Iranian regime. So the first thing the Iranian regime did, the Islamic Revolution forces did when they captured Iran, was to take all the embassy workers of the United States as hostages. And they were held hostages for more than 440 days, I think, at least. And they were kept hostages the whole time that loser, Carter, was in charge. So that whole time they didn't really fear the United States because the president was a weakling, like another weakling that we have right now. And those Americans, the embassy workers, were kept as hostages more than a year. Once Reagan came, and Reagan talked the whole time about what he's gonna do to Iran, they really believed that threat and they released those hostages right away. Those are the kind of people that captured the Iranian regime, the country, Iran. This is the mentality of Khomeini and the people that created that regime. But what happens is that with time, life, when you're at the top, life becomes good. You want to keep that lifestyle, and you might get some bribes from America. You might be ready to compromise on some things, and you become less and less idealistic. And those people that put you in power did that because they believed you're going to be the most Islamically religious, true, idealist person. And they're looking at those now city people basically as heretics, as people who don't do what they promised to do, as people that are now collaborating with the West, that are now getting bribes, that are now living more comfortably, that are now allowing women to show a little bit of hair when they're walking down the street. And these people might not be happy either. So imagine now with the climate today, maybe those people that would grab those key points in, the Iranian military facilities and nuclear plants and things like that, they might not even have kept those Americans as hostages. They might have just off them, because this is how Puritans, those who, like ISIS, set a new standard of how Islamic and Puritan you can be. Just think about how fun that would be if those kind of people would get military power. Before I go hardcore to the third part that I promised, where I say why do I think are signals that Turkey might be the next Iran, I want to talk about why I still think Israel has to strike Iran back. Let me tell you a story, a short, cute story. The story called Assad, Syria, nuclear plant. We've been there. Basically, Assad was really, really close to having a nuclear weapon, a nuclear bomb. And Israel somehow figured it out last moment, almost, where the plants are and everything, and the enrichment and everything that's happening. Israel came to the United States. The United States, nah, we don't want to deal with that, as usual. It was the same with the plant in Iraq as well, right? The Americans didn't want to take out the Iraqi nuclear facilities, and they don't want to do it with Iran. and they didn't want to do it with Syria. But I'm going to focus on Syria now, because what happened is that Syria fell into civil war, and that area where the nuclear plant was became ISIS-controlled area. Now imagine, I mean, not that Assad having nuclear power sounds anything but awful. We're talking about a man who struck his own population with chemical weapons, unconventional weapons. So maybe he would have done the same with the nukes. Why not just hit everybody around, if, especially us, the biggest fantasy of every Islamic regime, even though specifically Assad is not very Islamic, is Alawite, is like, it's a weird animal in the Islamic world. The thing is that after Assad, the ones who controlled the area where the nuclear plant was were ISIS. Second reason, and by the way, look Iran, what the US, how it left Afghanistan. America doesn't have good record. That's a real risk. Second, I really believe that striking the right things in Iran can help the Western people, the Western thinking, the freedom-loving people of Iran to be those who manage to get their country back. And they do need to feel that they have a backup, because usually those people are the ones who are not going to have the weapons. The majority of the weapons are usually held by the terrorists, right? Not by the average Iranian person who wants to live a good life. So that is a risk. And if they feel like they're left alone, maybe they won't have the motivation to do what is needed to do to get their country back. So I really believe this is a good reason, that another good reason that Israel has to show the Iranian people that somebody is there with them.
As per the study, 85% said that Iranians have become less religious compared to 5 years ago. Only 7% say that they have become more religious, and around 8% say that they do not see any difference between now and 5 years ago. Furthermore, almost 3/4 of Iranians want a secular government instead of a theocratic dictatorship. The study highlights that approximately 73% of Iranians advocate for the separation of religion from state. Contrary to this, 22.5% are advocating for a religious government. This is a sharp increase in secularism, with demands for secular governance rising from less than 31% in 2015. Similar studies were also conducted in the years 2000, 2003 and 2015. This is the fourth such study with participation from over 15,800 Iranians aged 18 and above across all 31 provinces.
And the third reason is because whether Iran falls with or without Israel, we're still in the Middle East. And you cannot show weakness in the Middle East. So Israel has to strike Iran to not give any other future idealistic Islamic caliphate seeking kind of mindset, people, organizations, countries that will rise, a chance to imagine that they can do something like Iran did, and they can repeat that as much as they want. By the way, Iran too cannot have the impression that it can do this thing again and again and again. We're still in the Middle East. We have no choice but to show that we will not tolerate an attack like that. It's something that we cannot afford. And I touched on it more in length on the video live stream I did yesterday, the second part, and other videos that I have. And I'm probably going to repeat it in the future too. Now, the exciting part, the third part that I promised. Why do I think there are good signs, or I would say awful signals, that Turkey might become the next Iran, the next caliphate-seeking country? You know how it is when you suddenly think about something and then things that you saw before kind of come back, and you get to relook at things that you've looked at already. And one thing that I suddenly remembered watching is a debate on Saudi channel where they talked how Israel is much less of a threat to Saudi Arabia than Iran, because Israel would not want to take over Saudi Arabia, control it, and then control Mecca, while Iran would. So no matter how much we don't like the Jews and how much Israel is bad and bad for the Palestinians and everything that they've been feeding their people and is now going against what they actually need the narrative to be, so they're trying to fix it as we're speaking. By the way, also announcing that Iran planned what happened on October 7th, and also publicly saying, yes, we participated on the defense drill, like we were part of that alliance. Saudi actually came out and said that. And I think they did it because there was another crucial point in that discussion. It was not only Iran that they mentioned. They also were talking about Turkey. And I think Saudi is fearing that once Iran is taken down, the next threat might be Turkey. And therefore, this alliance is not only just for Iran, it might be even good for later. And Iran has a close border with Saudi, so it feels a lot closer to what Turkey is. So Iran is definitely a bigger threat, an immediate threat on Saudi, way more than Turkey is. But I also believe there is a good reason they brought Turkey up in that discussion. And now reading the headlines and how Turkey is behaving and what's going on in Turkey, the more I believe that it might actually be true. It might actually be the direction that the Turkish government will go to. So yeah, this might be the crazy thing that's happening. And for those who don't know, Erdogan and Turkey are indeed Sunnah, and Iran are Shia. So they are natural enemies of each other, especially if they both want to control Mecca and the holy sites. And like I said before, part of the reason Saudi Arabia became a lot more Islamic in the first place was a response to the forces that came to power in Iran. Because once the Iranian regime, the Shia people were so Islamic, also Saudi had to become way more Islamic to prove that they have the rights to the holy places. So right now what's happening is that Saudi is obviously trying to get out of Islam. They're trying to modernize. They want to become more Western. They allow concerts. They fade, they gradually take out all those strict Islamist laws from their constitution. So who is the Iranian government trying to prove that they are super Islamic to? ISIS? Militias? Are those really a real threat to a regime, to a country like Iran? Or is it another country that is slowly but surely driving itself into lunacy? Okay. More signals that show that Turkey might be heading that way is that first they announced that they would stop their trade with Israel, and they started talking to Hamas, signaling to Hamas that the day after Iran, Turkey will be there. And of course, this is something that I hope the Western audience would be ready to fathom finally. The Palestinian cause is a cause that is adopted by every force that wants to establish an Islamic caliphate. And the fact that Turkey is now collaborating and meeting up with Hamas and saying that they want to stop trade with Israel, it is basically preparing itself to inherit the Palestinian cause and present themselves as being in the forefront of the Islamic interest of fighting the Jews. And of course, after Saturday comes Sunday, the West. And Turkey is also funding mosques and buildings all throughout the West where they teach those Islamic ideas the same way Iran does. And the reason they are at this stage is because Erdogan came to power thinking that Islam is the best way to rule this country. So he took a successful country with a growing economy and ruined it completely. Completely trashed it. It now has super high inflation. They're poor. They're basically almost bankrupt. They have nothing. And what's easier, one option would be for the government and for the governance change in Turkey to occur, hopefully, and have someone like Javier Milei that would come out and say, no hay plata, no tenemos dinero, no hay plata, there is no money. We have to rebuild Turkey. There were mistakes that were made. What's easier is to announce a war on the whole world and say that instead of saying, hey, that Islamic economy thing was a bad idea, no. It's the best idea. The only problem is that the rest of the world is not Islamic and we need to fix it. Amazing. And yes, Turkey is part of NATO, which makes everything more complicated, and it has a huge, strong army. Now imagine that, and it's in Europe. Turkey is next door. You might have Iran next door. And this is something that your governments might not want you to notice or know, because that would really create panic. One thing is Iran, that is in the middle of Asia. Turkey, that's your neighbor. That's next door. That's really close up to you, isn't it? Now imagine what that kind of information would do to Europe. But you cannot deny reality. And you have to face it. You have to face it. And that threat that might be upcoming is needed to be, we need to talk about it. We need to say it. We need to prepare for it. And the reason also that suddenly all those European countries are so eager to get the defense system Israel offers, maybe it's not just Russia. Maybe there are other close-up neighbor that they want to get that defense system against. Just saying. And like I said when I did this geopolitical review yesterday on live, every country has its ethos, right? As its story, as the way it perceived itself. And some countries perceive themselves as empires. And once Turkey is losing the kind of legacy of Turkey that Ataturk had built, that secular kind of country, if this is not what Turkey is anymore, if they go a little bit back in history, then it's the Ottoman Empire. That's their second legacy that they might want to try to go back to. So it makes sense that if they're ditching that narrative of having a secular, progressive, scientific society, and they're now more Islamic, maybe that whole legacy of Turkiye, and the Ataturk legacy is getting ditched and replaced with the mindset of the Ottoman Empire. And with it, they want to have a global caliphate. Yes, fun. But that doesn't mean Iran shouldn't be replaced with a regime that their people would want, because right now the regime doesn't have a support of its people. And most of the Iranian people are amazing people. Having Iran not be fighting Turkey or other forces as like who's going to be the next caliphate, or having that Shia force to oppose Sunni, I don't believe it's necessary, because having Iran as an advanced country that cooperates with the West would be so much more of an asset than any dictatorship that oppresses their own people would be. Imagine if Iran could be a Western ally the way Israel is. That would completely change the game of the way Asia is, the way the Middle East is, everything would be completely different. Iran could be something great for the world. So let's do try to bring that kind of force to rule Iran. And we can deal with Turkey with Iran's help, instead of thinking that bringing people down is the way to go and then making them be busy with each other is the way to go. I mean, maybe Americans think that this is the best way to control the world. They don't believe in being equal with anyone. They believe that everything is, or everybody, every country is pawn, and that they need to be controlling everything. But I'm gonna say it like, no, I believe there is way more benefit to having alliances based on equality and not based on one controlling the other. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment. I have Buy Me Coffee, just reminding again. Link in the description below. And thank you so much. See ya. And I hope I'm wrong about Turkey and right about Iran, and that Iran will become an amazing ally to the West and Turkey will not decide to go crazy. Amen. I wish to be proven wrong about that part. I truly do. I don't want to be a great analyst to predict everything that's coming. I prefer to be wrong. Like, comment, subscribe, share, talk. And also be aware that maybe that new threat should be addressed and talked about.